Oh man, did you guys think I was done with the list of books? Hi, my name is Joe, and my channel is Fighting Words, the Martial Arts Library. So, usually on this channel I do book reviews, long form book reviews, usually between, 10 and 15 minutes. What I've been doing recently, though, I've just had this urge to sort of, if you're a martial artist, if you do any sort of martial art, check out these books in general. So my first list was 12 books, my next was 14. It's going to be another 14 books. This will, I think, conclude the hard copy books that I have. It's a lot, but I'm going to explain to you why I think martial artists of any particular flavor will really enjoy these books. So let's begin. No Second Chance by Mark Hatmaker. Those of you who've seen my prior lists or who have seen some of my other book reviews, you know I'm a really big fan of this particular author. No Second Chance does a really good job of... It offers self-defense principles up front in the beginning, and then later on gets into some very instinctive, very fundamental, self-defense, physical tactics. Up to and including, ground movements, how to drill this stuff, which is also important. But the idea behind it, the explanation of this is why you might get attacked. And this is the mindset you should have in order to prevent attacks or to fight like crazy if you are attacked. All that stuff is included here, things on awareness and stuff like that. He also includes predator profiles, which actually are profiles of, people who have done horrible things, just to sort of get you in the right mindset of, we're not trying to scare you off, but this is your worst case scenario. So this is why you need to fight with your utmost if you are attacked. So on both the mental and the physical side of self-defense, you get both in this particular book. And next we have Fightnomics by Kune, I guess, Kuhn. This is going to be most immediately valuable to people who teach or train in mixed martial arts. What this book did was it took the statistics of fights from UFC matches, and we're talking like every possible statistic, including whether the fighters were southpaw or orthodox, what the difference in height and reach was. He's got a section in here on guys who missed weight in their win ratio and guys who got like kicked in the nuts and their win ratio. I think beyond that, it's invaluable as an approach to martial arts training, and I would say specifically any kind of competition training. When it comes to MMA, of course, it has a lot of good information. For instance, it shows that takedowns from the outside, like shooting at a distance, gets you roughly a 30% success rate. Meanwhile, takedowns from the clinch have a much higher success rate, specifically the upper body clinch. So if you're preparing your students for mixed martial arts, that's good information. Like train them maybe not to shoot so much and train them to work on their clinch work. But that also, means making them good at controlling the clinch so that, they don't get thrown by the other guy. So that would be an example. Another one that really stuck out to me was that the success rate of all these submissions decreases as the fight goes on, except for the knee bar. And the success rate of the knee bar actually increases as the fight goes on. Now, obviously that has immediate transferability to people who train and participate in mixed martial arts. If you train in other competitive formats, this is something that you can look out for. You know, when you're comparing, let's say, the boxers that you're facing, when you're comparing the point fighters that you're facing, okay, what technique scores the most? What combination scores the most? It just opens up a good way of looking at the competition. And if you are not a competitive fighter, even in like an amateur sense, I think this is one more instance where, you know, if we accept my conceit that the fundamentals of mixed martial arts are the fundamentals of unarmed combat, then I think one can find some ways in which the information contained in this book could apply to a more street-oriented format. Judo Techniques and Tactics by Eric Dominy. This is one of the first books I ever got. I got it from our, you know, small town secondhand bookstore. Actually, it wasn't secondhand, come to think of it, but anyway, I didn't know what I had at the time. You know, I didn't practice judo. I just loved all martial arts. This, especially if you're looking at tachiwaza, throwing techniques, this is going to be very valuable because for every throw presented herein, which you're going to find not just in judo, but also in arts like shuijiao, ringen, wrestling to an extent, sambo, traditional jujitsu, probably several other things. So you can take a look at the throws that are presented, and here's what we got. For instance, Dayashi Barai. Every throw, we get opportunity, when I should go for this throw, timing, at what point in my opponent's movement should I execute this throw. Then it has the description of the throw itself, and in this other little section, variations, it'll tell you how to alter the throw depending on whether you are taller or shorter than your opponent. Then it has other information, successive attacks with the same throw, change of throw in the same direction, change of direction of attack, and possible counters. That's listed for every throw in here, and all the throws are going to be the fundamental throws that you're going to find in, again, judo, traditional jiu-jitsu, probably some hapkido, you know, sambo, ringen, Brazilian jiu-jitsu. You know, when you, if you train any sort of throwing method at all, you can take a look at this and you can break down every throw that you're doing, like, okay, so I'm going to pair up with somebody who's taller than me and learn to apply that throw based on the information contained herein. And of course, it's also got, you know, a lot of, you know, principles at the beginning and holding and locking, choking techniques, you know, at the end of it. Those are also valuable as well. And I started looking up the author. Apparently he's, you know, put out several judo books. I need to find the rest, because if any of them are half as good as this, you know, they're going to be gold. Boxing's 10 Commandments by Alan Lachica. Boxing is the science of fist fighting. Most people fight with their fists. So there are many martial arts that either have similar patterns to boxing or can benefit from boxing training. This book in particular I like because I especially like the chapter on the footwork, on how to enter and get off at an angle, you know, after you fired off your shots. It also includes a number of different defenses for every punch, you know, several different combinations to give you ideas on how to throw things, how to have a lesson plan for sparring. You know, this is This is an excellent resource, particularly if you do full contact striking, boxing in particular. But if you want the skills of getting good at fighting with your fists and also using good footwork to put yourself in a position where you can hit the opponent and not hit them back. This is one of my favorite books, actually, of all time because of that. And if you do any of that stuff, this is going to help you out. Next we have Boxing by the Aviation Training Division, Office of the Chief of Naval Operations, U.S. Navy. This book was actually published in 1943, so right in the middle of World War II. But it was on training boxing in various units. And this is another book that serves as a textbook because, especially when it comes to defense, defense against various blows, I mean, it's practically an encyclopedia. This is very useful. Fist fighting of all sorts is useful for how transferable it is to real fighting. This is what people tend to hit each other with. So if one goes through and starts drilling, the various defenses, exploring the defenses, there's quite a lot. Even the offensive section, for instance, they're showing an uppercut while the free arm is crossing the face to guard. There's a lot of attention paid to defensive matters in this book. And if it's one of those things, if I had to recommend one text on the science of boxing, this might be it, just because of how complete it is in the technical section. Again, particularly the defensive side. Boxing is known as the sweet science of defense. This will get the defense part. Jujitsu Complete by Kiyose Nakai. Nakai? Nakai. Kai. Nake. That's probably right. This book is valuable because it was written at the end of the 50s at a time where everyone had street fights and business suits. This is a very self-defense oriented book. I think there are some things of this that hold up better than others, but one thing it does very well is it demonstrates a limited selection of techniques, but toward the end of the book shows the reader how to combine, okay, if the technique you learned in chapter 3 didn't work, the technique you learned in chapter 7 is going to follow up immediately to that. So throws that build off of other throws, but with a very self-defense oriented perspective. So if you have a background in a traditional grappling art, this, I think, has a very realistic look at how you would apply that to self-defense. If you're interested in self-defense, you can get a hold of this and take some ideas from it. Throws and sweeps require a lot of practice in order to get good sensitivity and timing. So I'm not going to say, just read it and then you can do it. It's far from the truth. You need to put in the time. But if you do put in the time, I think this is a very good resource for using traditional jiu-jitsu in a self-defense scenario. John Fawn Jeet Kune Do, the textbook by Chris Kent and Tim Tackett. So Mr. Tackett was actually a first-generation student of Bruce Lee, and Mr. Kent just barely missed out, but he was still training with the Inosanto group. This is useful because it gives a number of different drills and concepts for training striking arts. For instance, there's ideas on how to apply trapping from more of a kickboxing perspective. There's, how to determine, what openings the opponent is showing. There's drills for building up your reflexes, even if you're training alone and you're watching TV. I guess technically you wouldn't be training it, but you can build up reaction time. They have a drill for that, how to build your reaction time while you're watching TV. So this book, I think, is going to be great if you have a background in, again, any stand-up striking art. There's going to be something in here you can use, and probably more than a little something. So again, I'd highly recommend this, full of excellent drills. The Essential Book of Martial Arts Kicks. This actually comes with a DVD. I don't have the DVD in here. I have it somewhere else. It's by Mark DeBremiker and Roy Fahey. Anyway, this is an encyclopedia of martial arts kicks. So if you do a martial art with kicks, I'm sure you can immediately see how this is going to be useful to what you're doing. And when I mean encyclopedia, for instance, I'm just going to be reading from one of the chapters. Okay, chapter 3 is on roundhouse kicks. Everybody knows how to do a roundhouse kick, right? Okay, there's certain variations. Yeah, but here we go. Here are the variations that are presented. The full roundhouse kick, the small roundhouse kick, the front leg roundhouse kick, the universal chamber roundhouse kick, hopping roundhouse kick, oblique roundhouse kick, straight leg roundhouse kick, downward roundhouse kick, bent leg long roundhouse kick, spin back roundhouse kick, 360 spin back roundhouse kick, switch roundhouse kick, the heel roundhouse kick, the drop roundhouse kick, the drop twin roundhouse kick, the rear leg drop roundhouse kick, kneeling up roundhouse kick. That's 16 variations of one kick. If you want to really get into the mastery of a single kicking technique, this provides numerous options, as well as drills and, examples of application where you can use this for self-defense and for competition. I think it goes a little bit overboard. I wouldn't use some of these that it shows for self-defense for those self-defense scenarios, but I like that they're giving some variety out there. So yeah, this is, I guess, about as comprehensive as a single source could be on kicks. We also have Complete Kickboxing by Martina Sprague and Keith Livingston. This book works like a textbook. Instead of, as many books on kickboxing would do, instead of just showing, a wealth of techniques, here's 5 pictures showing how to throw a side kick or whatever. This includes technique work, but it also has a lot of drills and text on how to apply the techniques. And I think this is valuable, obviously, if you're going into a full contact striking event. There's a lot of stuff here that will transfer over. I think that if you do any sort of, primary striking martial art, you're going to find a lot of drills in this book and a lot of ideas in this book that will help you use your arsenal. And it goes beyond what a lot of people would see as, the typical kickboxing arsenal of it's a front kick and a round kick. These guys are old school. So, he covers things like the use of the crescent kick and, the use of the axe kick and stuff like that. So this is another one, again, it's very much a textbook. I think my cats are fighting. Muay Thai, A Living Legacy. I'm afraid that the light from my illuminator is going to shine off the cover too much. Anyway, I'm not going to read off the authors' names for this. Not this time. I'll embarrass myself later when I actually get around to reviewing it. because they are Thai, and I don't speak Thai. So, anyway, why should you get this book? For starters, it has an extensive section on the history and culture of Muay Thai, including, a chapter on various rituals, like, the amulets, traces the history back up to and including the modern times. The techniques section, oh man, is we get color photos, and it's like this is a fancy technique. The mid-air elbow strike. You're not going to see that in most Muay Thai texts. So it's nearly exhaustive when it comes to that sort of thing, when it comes to techniques. It's also got the Y Crew. It's got a fold-out poster for that. So, the ritual dance of sorts, that gives respect to your teachers and those who have come before you. It's beautiful, it's well-researched, it's an incredible book. So I can't recommend this enough. It's obviously, if you practice Muay Thai or an art that uses a lot of what Muay Thai does, I think you can find a lot in the technique section if you're interested in martial arts history and culture. This has got a lot of that. So, yeah, highly recommend this one. Mastering Jiu-Jitsu by Hinzo Gracie and John Danaher. I've actually already done a book review on this. I think this is best for, again, strategies for unarmed combat, and the paradigm shift of recognizing that instead of classifying fighting by ranges like close range or short range, he goes to it by phases. So there's free movement phase, so kickboxing and shooting for takedowns from the outside. Then there's the clinch phase, which is pretty self-explanatory, and also the ground phase, again, self-explanatory. So this is excellent, again, more for concepts and strategies, and there's also a good chunk on history, and also in the self-defense section. It's a nice bonus. It's not extensive, but it's a useful part in the self-defense section about not just classifying the types of violence that one may need to defend oneself from, but also goes over things like, the prayer stance. Like I said, I've done a full review of this. You can check that out if you want more information. Okay, 2 books that I'm going to review at once when I actually get around to the reviews. Ultimate Fighting Techniques by Royce Gracie. But I don't practice Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Okay. This gives textbook ground fighting, and actually beyond that. It includes, for instance, in the early sections here on how to close the distance in order to get a takedown. It's weird that he's on the bottom. This is for the top game. Anyway. But if you want to do any sort of ground defense at all, including defending yourself against punches on the ground, this is the technical work on the submissions and transitions is maybe unmatched in the books that I have. As far as if you do this exactly how I say, you've done it perfectly. Just good attention to detail. And again, there are parts of these that address things that go beyond a sport match, like how to use kicks to close the distance, how to defend yourself against punches on the ground. So if you do practice an art that incorporates ground submissions, this is good for understanding the technical bits to that. If you are not someone who trains extensively in ground fighting, it's still good to get a hold of in order to understand, especially the bottom game. You know, how do I move from a bad position to a less bad position? If someone's on top of me and trying to punch me, how do I defend against that? That'd be what that book's for. You know, how do I control someone if I need to take them down and prevent them from hurting me? That's what this book's for. So both technically and strategically, this is an excellent set. And finally, book number 14, BJ Penn, Mixed Martial Arts, The Book of Knowledge. Again, my conceit is that the fundamentals of mixed martial arts are the fundamentals of unarmed combat. Mr. Penn does an excellent job here of, you know, even for a guy who's not known for his conditioning, he does a pretty good job of explaining how to drill for conditioning in the beginning. But specifically to the most important stuff, he will go over things like, you know, okay, if I'm in a fight where somebody's trying to punch me and I wind up on my back, what am I going to do? You know, how am I going to defend those strikes and go for an opportunity to stand up, for instance. And that's not covered a lot in many texts, even self-defense stuff. You know, how do I stand up if I'm getting pinned to the ground? From a fighting perspective, he doesn't go over kicks at all, I don't think, but everything else, you know, he's very good at the fundamentals of mixed martial arts. Everything from, you know, fighting in the clinch, how to get a takedown off of your own strikes, how to defend takedowns, you know, punching combinations, he's really big on that, striking in the clinch, ground fighting, some wall work. You know, it's not simply a book of like, I punch the guy in the face and then I shoot a double and then I go for an arm bar. You know, it covers a lot more than that. Like, this is why we're throwing this particular combination, because we know we're going to get this reaction off of our second punch. So again, fundamentals of fighting are in the fundamentals of mixed martial arts. And unfortunately, I think that the book is out of print. You might be able to find it on PDF. I think I have it there. So, another good book. So that concludes my most recent list of 14 other martial arts books you should be reading. And again, I'm trying to cover all sorts of stuff, you know, from many different sides of the martial arts world. I do, for me, have an eye toward practicality, but also, you know, I have included things based on the art portion of it. I hope that you guys have enjoyed this. This is going to be the last list of these that I'm going to do on anything I have on hard copy. We'll see if my poor external drive can be recovered. Because I might do one more list based on books that I have exclusively on PDF that I won't be able to show you, like, you know, Vanna White. But I hope that you will find these useful. I've tried to give reasons why I think, as a martial artist, even if you don't participate in the particular martial art this book is covering, why you would benefit from this book. And anyway, that's all I got for this week. I hope you guys have enjoyed it, and I'll see you next week. Thank you.